Welcome to Momtroversial, the podcast that dives headfirst into the beautiful chaos of motherhood and dishes on the stuff we wish we would have known and nobody tells you. I'm Leah, a scrunchy nurse writing the Hot Mess Express, and I'm your girl's girl here to remind you it's fine, we're fine, and everything's fine.
I'm Alyssa, crunchy mom who's all about organic living. I'm organized, opinionated, and your designated wingwoman in any parenting bar fight.
And as you can see, if you guys are watching us, if you're listening, you can't tell yet, but we have a special guest with us this morning that we are super excited to talk to. This is Miss Donna Pope, and she has a background in working in adoption, from being an executive director for adoptions to clinical mental health counselor to having facilitated many, many adoptions, and is the host of her very own podcast that is all things adoption. And as Alyssa was just saying, this is something that is near and dear to her heart because of background of adoption in her family. And my background as a labor and delivery nurse, I've worked with several moms who have gone through the adoption process and then personal friends. So this is something that I also am very passionate about. So, Donna, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to let us talk to you. And the first thing that I would or we would just love to know is what personally drew you into the world of adoption, and how has your faith shaped the way that you have approached adoption?
No, and thank you so much for having me. There was one part that you left out in your introduction, and I may want to make sure, and you can see it right back here. And this is a long time ago, but those are my three boys. And so I am an adopted mom. And to me, that's the most important part of the whole
Mm.
introduction is my
Mm-hmm.
boys. And so when you talk about what brought me into adoption, that is a little bit different story than what has helped me to learn more about adoption. And ultimately, my experience as an adoptive mother has taught me more. And you know this as moms, what you learn as a mom
Mm.
is far more than
Mm-hmm.
you learn anywhere else and in any other way. And so I think it might be interesting even for us to talk about maybe some of the challenges of being a mother of adopted children in addition to
Yeah.
being a mother in general. Is it different? I don't know. I've not been a mother of biological children, but I've only been a mother of adopted children, so I can address it from that point of view. But in answer to your original question, what brought me to adoption is my sister. So my sister, she couldn't have children. And so she started adopting. So she adopted a little girl, Keely, and no, Alexis, and then she adopted a boy, uh, uh, and Garrett, and then she adopted another boy, Colton. And then the agency that she was working with was not willing to place a fourth child with her. And so they suggested that she find another agency. So, in the process of finding another agency, she asked for my help, and I got to know a lot of agencies around. In addition to that, I worked with an agency in housing their birth moms, meaning women who were considering doing an adoption placement that needed a place to live sometimes would come over and stay in a spare room that I had at my home. And so I got to know them through that way and came to love them. I came to love them and deeply respect them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to even imagine what it feels like to be in a position that they're in. And most of the time, the reason they're in the position they're in, where they feel like they need to do an adoption plan, is because so many other aspects of their lives are not straightened out, are not clear. Now, that's not always the case, but at least the women that I worked with who needed a place to live, they had a lot of stuff going on. And so some of those things may have been drug related. Many times there were some mental health issues that were involved in it, but there was never ever a lack of love. And that's something that sometimes people don't recognize is how much these women loved the baby they were going to give life to. you both are pregnant. You already love this baby. And so the conflict that would go into your heart as you're thinking about, I already love this baby that's inside of me. I already love him or her, and yet I'm going to choose to place this child with someone else. There's a lot of conflict that goes into trying to make that decision. And so I came to know them. I came to understand that struggle that they were having, and I came to really respect and care for them as they're going through that discussion, that struggle.
I think that for me, my first 2 pregnancies were extremely difficult. This one has luckily been a little easier, but I can't imagine the love that has to go into being willing to be pregnant without really any of the reward of that sweet
Mm.
little baby, and loving that baby enough to say, "I wanna give you a better option, a better, situation than I think I can give you." Like, that is really crazy to me. It is
Yeah,
just ultimate love, I think.
yeah,
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely something that moms have struggled with. Moms, when I've delivered them in the hospital and the babies have been up for adoption, um, it's always a roller coaster because then you go through the whole process. Um, but adoption is also in itself such a beautiful opportunity for those moms who don't feel like their life is in a place where they can give the child the life that they need so that they have the opportunity to still allow this child to have a life, but
Mhm,
to give this child a better life through someone else who can help take care of them, which I've worked with pregnancy centers, and that's one thing that we do a lot of education on for a bunch of moms who come back with these unexpected pregnancies is the option of adoption.
mhm,
And, how that is it's another option that a lot of people don't know about when they feel stuck in that position. So, I think adoption is just it's a beautiful thing, and as a Christian, it's also just another beautiful picture of how God adopted us into his family,
mhm,
how he brought us in, especially if you don't have the traditional Jewish background, that you have been grafted into the tree of life through Jesus. And this is another real world example of how you can just model God's love for us to somebody else.
yeah.
Can you explain for our listeners a little bit about what your organization does and the background on your organization? Did you start it after helping your sister with housing the birth moms for her fourth adoption?
For sure. So there were two things that I learned in that process. If I go back to getting to know these women, um, one of the things that bothered me is that sometimes they were seen as, necessary, but, kind of, they were not seen in the way that I had hoped they would be seen, which is
Mm,
with compassion and with respect. And everybody loves the cute little wonderful baby. Everybody loves that baby, and that is such a sweet little thing. And the adoptive family are the ones that they usually have the money. They're more affluent. They're you know on top of things, and so everybody has respect there. But sometimes there was some judgment given to these women of, "What's your problem? Can't get it together?" And so sometimes there was judgment there, and that really bothered me. It
mm,
really bothered me. Now, part of it is that, I think we all feel that way sometimes, where we are not all that we wanna be, and we don't want people looking down on us. And, so that was one lesson I learned, is that we needed to treat these women with more respect, with more compassion, with more kindness. And what you said there, Alyssa, when you said that they might go through this pregnancy and then not have the reward. Well, that's tough. I
Mhm.
mean, for all of us, we go through the pain of pregnancy and then the pain of delivery, and then some of that is gone when we hold that cute little baby in our arms and we feel the joy that comes from that. Imagine going through all that and now handing the baby to somebody else.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a lot. That's really a lot. And so one of the things that I learned is that we can do better in helping them through this process and helping them come out the other end with something positive. So it's not just loss after loss after loss, but come out with something positive. Well, and so you have to say, well, what is positive that could come out of that? Well, there's a couple of things. One is that's key is the relationship between them and the adoptive family. So they come out of it feeling like I bless the life of this other family. And so they come out feeling, look at the blessing I created for this other family. And then being able to have a relationship that's comfortable, that they can watch how the baby's growing and know that the baby's doing well. And so that leads to one of your possible questions is that how do I feel about open adoption and closed adoption? There's the words open and closed seem to be a binary, and I don't think it's a binary. It's more of a gradation. It's depending on where people are in their relationship and their ability to maintain relationships, it can look differently to different people. And so the challenge is making sure that you give the options of what this binary or this gradation relationship can look like. So that was one of the things. How do we help these women through this situation and have them come out with a positive experience and with joy? And part of the faith comes in there that I have done something great for somebody else. The second part of what I learned in helping my sister is what it's like to be on the other end. What it's like to want a child so badly and not be able to do it yourself, and long to be a mother, long to have this child, and then go through the judgments that you go through as an adoptive family. Are you worth having a child for? And the struggle that it feels like to feel like I'm a failure because I can't have children. And so there's a lot of changes on that, the problems with that. The biggest thing that I learned in working with adoptive families is do what you say you're going to do. And that's the same principle with birth mothers too, because they're so vulnerable and they're in a situation that they don't know who can I count on, who can I trust. And so you with adoptive families, money becomes an issue. How much is this going to cost? What is this going to cost? And if I get sucked into loving this child, are you going to throw something at me that I didn't expect, and then I'm now committed to it because now I love this child? And there's some game playing that shouldn't happen at all because there's already so much emotion involved in it. So being straightforward, transparent, totally honest with the adoptive family as much as you can, because there's so many things you can't control. And because the control of what this is going to happen lies in the hands of the mom. And the mom's going through what she has. So being able to provide her the support that she needs to make the decisions that's best for her and the child, while at the same time being able to support the adoptive family in this unknown, that's really challenging. But that is the role of an agency, and that is what I started to learn as we were going along. Yes, and so in the process of seeing those two sides, I thought to myself, I think I could start an agency and we could do this, and we could do this better. Now I don't mean better, because there's many, many great agencies out there that do it really good. But so we started an agency with those two things in mind: giving love, compassion, respect to the birth mom, and being transparent and honest and as supportive as we can to the adoptive family. Now, it's grown beyond that because of my children, because now I have children that are 26, 24, and 20 years old, and I've watched them grow up as an adoptee. And so my love and my respect and desire to be good to adoptees has grown and grown through those years, and understanding of some of their thoughts and their feelings. And so as a podcaster, I've also interviewed many, many adoptees and can kind of see some of the challenges that go in that area. So I started the agency back in 1998, and we've been doing it since then, to try to provide those services.
And what's the name of your agency again, just for our listeners?
It's called Heart to Heart Adoptions. Heart to Heart Adoptions. We have a faith-based part of it called Eternal Family Adoptions, and we also have the podcasts which are called Choosing Adoption for birth mothers, and then Voices of Adoption, which is for everybody, and then Adoption Utah, which is to try to focus on some of the issues and challenges in the Utah arena. So that's what the name of it is.
Love it.
I think what you said is so true for motherhood in general when you were talking about people looking down on these moms as if the ones who are giving their babies up for adoption as if there's something wrong with them. But without, it just makes me so mad because it's especially prevalent for these women, but motherhood in general is really hard.
It is.
It is. It is, besides marriage, it is the most sanctifying, selfless process where the issues that you have and struggles that you have are revealed to yourself. Everything changes once this child enters the world and your priorities. And for people to criticize a mother for making a choice, in my opinion, being able to be humble enough to say that I know that this child needs better than what I can do right now.
Mhm.
That's just one of the things of our society that really just gets my motor going, and, like, it makes me so mad because motherhood deserves way more grace. Moms of adopted children, moms who are giving their kids up for adoption, regular moms, like, everybody just deserves more grace because at the end of the day, like, those children are so important. And children are the next generation. Children are so innocent, children are so pure. They deserve to be able to be loved and cared for and get all of those things. And when people put a stigma on adoption or adoptees, that's half of the battle that we have in this country for, you know, the this is totally controversial and getting extreme, but, like, for the unborn and their lives because women feel that stigma, and it's not fair to them. That's
Yeah.
something that you said that just really stuck with me, and it really gets me going, especially because of the conversations I've had with moms at pregnancy centers, and that for them, they're like, "Oh, no, like, I could never." And adoption's also just so hard. We have friends who, bless their heart, they tried to adopt for so long. They spent thousands and thousands of dollars and had one mom back out after another until they ended up just in a really sad situation and they just gave up on the process altogether. And it's a hard process for all parties involved. And I think it's something that just more awareness needs to be brought to, especially for those loved ones of ours who are also trying to adopt.
Mhm.
Because it's like you said, all of the power is in the hands of the mom. So for everyone involved, they deserve grace and we need to be understanding and we need to be soft, gentle-hearted towards them. So yeah, those are just kind of my thoughts of what you just said. What about you, Alyssa?
Just what you said about the unborn, just it made me think of something my mom always said. She was adopted when she was a baby, and she did not have a wonderful, easy life growing up at all.
Mm.
But even when it was hard, she would, like looking back on it, she told us like she was so grateful that she was alive. because
Mm.
it really is a choice that was made for her. Her birth mother loved her enough to carry her and to give her this chance at life, and it wasn't an easy life, and it was, painful at points, but she's still grateful for her life, in even not an easy life is still you're still worth living, You're still worth it, and I think
Mhm.
that that's
Mhm.
just something that a lot of people miss out on, I think.
Yeah. And oftentimes people have asked, am I pro-life, pro-choice? I am absolutely pro-choice, but pro-choice towards life. Now,
Mhm,
these women, I've quit judging totally. Uh, whatever choices they make, those are their choices. But if we can give them options and choices that could bring life, whew, that's what we wanna do. We
mhm,
wanna give them the support, the help, because when they're faced with an unexpected or an unplanned pregnancy and they're going, "What do I do? What do I do? How do I handle this? How do I handle this?" Do I blame them if they choose to go get an abortion? No, I get it. I understand it because they don't see any other options. So if we can give them, "Here, let's help you with your housing. Let's give you the chance to be able to bring life to this child. Let's help you get a phone so that you can get into the doctor. Let's help you find medical care. Let's help you be able to get through this pregnancy and then be able to give life to this child." And then you did it. You know you brought life to this child. Now, then you this child that you love, that you sacrificed for, that you chose to go through this pregnancy for, and all of the stigmatism, all of the griping that people did around you and disrespect, you were willing to go through that to bring this child life. And now we're gonna ask you to give it away. Now we're gonna
mhm,
ask you to give this child to somebody else. That's really hard. That's really
mhm,
hard. And so where the joy comes from them is if they've developed a relationship with that family and they see the love and the need and the desire for that family, and they know they're the ones that have not only um, given life to this child, but have also given this child to this family. And and
mhm,
and sometimes it's as simple as have given a sibling to another little girl or boy. And so they did that. They
mhm,
did that when nobody else could do that. And they did it. And that feeling of accomplishment is what brings them joy. And then over time, watching that child grow up. Now we are learning, having now adult adoptee kids, we are learning that these kids need answers, that they
mhm,
wanna know, "Now, what's the story with my biological, mom?" or whatever. It was so funny because, um, my oldest son, I took him to a counselor because and he was young, he was probably 8 or 9, he wasn't very old, because he was struggling, and I thought, "I gotta get some help with someone." So we went into a counselor, and, the counselor said to me, "Okay, go ahead and step out and let me talk with your son for a minute." And so I did. I was not in the waiting room 30 seconds that she opened the door and called me to come back in. And I thought, what in the world did my son say to this counselor in 30 seconds that I need to come back in and answer? And then my second thought was, and why didn't he just say it to me? And so we went back in and she said, "Your son wants to know why his birth mother placed him for adoption." So that was so much in his mind that
mhm,
within 30 seconds of being in a safe place that he felt like he could ask that question, he asked it. Now, I'm glad I gave him the safe place. I feel a little bad that he didn't feel like he could ask me directly. And I've learned from that of how do I make sure that there's a safe place for them to
mhm,
ask whatever questions they want. And then, of course, I had actually talked with his birth mother, who I have a good relationship with, um, and she's my friend, uh, that I knew what she wanted me to answer, and give him as much of the truth as I felt like this 8, 9-year-old little boy was ready to handle at the time. So getting answers to these questions for these adoptees, and then even sometimes making it possible for them to have a relationship with them. Now, sometimes it's not appropriate, sometimes it's not possible, but helping them grow up with as many of the answers about who they are is super important. And as moms, you know that kids have answers. They have questions, and adopted children have additional questions that they need answers for. I don't
Mhm.
remember what the
Yeah.
question that we led to that whole thing.
No, it's okay. I would love to know, just from your experience, so going into open versus closed adoptions, because that's what we're talking about a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit right
Oh,
now.
okay. Okay.
How do you help families navigate those boundaries and expectations between the child and then the parent? How do you help as with your agency, but then also personally with your boys? How did you help navigate that as well?
No, that's an excellent question, a very important question. We realized years ago that we needed, a better tools for that. And so we developed, and certainly have tried to make it available to anybody who wants to use it, an online, I call it kind of a mini Facebook. But it's not. It's where the adoptive family will put their profile in, the birth mom will put her profile in, and they have a secure, moderated group. Now, our expectations to adoptive families is that they post in that group. They post pictures and messages on a regular basis, and we kind of give them a scale, a kind of guidelines as how often we want them to post. And then the birth mom or birth father or even birth grandmas or anybody that she gives permission to can come in and see pictures of this group. Now, it's moderated in the sense that if there's conflict that starts to happen, then a counselor can step in and try to help support the angst or whatever it is that's going on in that relationship. Now, sometimes we can do that within the thing itself, the platform itself, and sometimes we need to pick up the phone and have discussions with people and try to help them understand how to have boundaries. But the expectation is that adoptive families will post. Birth parents will come in when they choose, and then they can post what they want to. And it's in a safe, moderated environment. Now, if they're comfortable and when they're comfortable, then they can go into a direct relationship with each other. But it gets them started and gets a chance to get to know each other, and then they can expand it beyond there when they're ready for. That's what we found that works most effectively. Now, that's in the beginning. Now, later on, when we're at a point like my children are, which is very common as they go through teenage years and then into their early 20s, and then as they go on, some of these questions they feel like they're a little more ready to get answers to. Some people don't feel like they're ready for those answers till they're 30, 40, 50, 60s. And I've talked to a lot of adoptees which that they didn't feel like they even wanted to try to do a reunion with biological parents until they were in 40s and 50s. And so those navigating those are a little bit different than the early stages, and that usually requires them working with somebody to try to help navigate that.
Do you, from your experience, can you give us like overall some anonymous examples of how open adoptions play out long term? Is there usually some type of a reunification, or does it just depend on the person and the story in the background?
Well, I'll I don't know that they want me to, but I'll use my 3 sons as examples. Because they kind of hit the 3 different, types. That, again, everybody's very individual, but my oldest son, his birth mom is Monica, And she and I knew each other. She actually lived with me when she was pregnant with him. And so we became friends, and we've been friends all along. So he's always known when he turned, and I've always, she'll call every once in a while and how's he doing? And I'll mention and we'll talk. But when he was 18, she said, "Can I call him?" And we had sort of set that as a guideline of for direct relationship, unless he expresses something more, for her to reach out to him, we would wait till he was 18. And he never really wanted to reach out to her before that, though the options were there. And then, and it was sort of funny because she called him, and I asked her afterwards how'd it go, and she goes, he just kept going, "Oh, yeah. No, that's good. Okay." And she called me, and she's just crying. It was so wonderful. And I said, "Well, how was it for you, honey?" To him, and he goes, "It was okay." And I thought, for her, this was so important. For him, it was just fine. It was okay. Now, I don't know. Now, over the years, it's become more interesting because now that was when he was 18, he's now 26, and so now in the last 8 years, he's gone and spent Christmas with her. She has another son that's 4 years older than my son is, and he comes over and they hang out together. And so they've had Christmas with the biological brother and his biological mom, and, it's been okay. It's been okay. There's some challenges that come with it. But now he's in a place that if he has a direct relationship with them. She told me the other day, she says, "I called him up and he just wanted to talk to his brother and he didn't really care about me." So he was just, and so the, they have to work out the dynamics of that
Mhm.
relationship themselves. Now, I'm always going to be there as his mom to help smooth it over wherever we can. And so for that, it's easy because I have a relationship with everyone involved and can negotiate where we need to. That's my oldest. My and is his relationship going to change as the years go on? Absolutely. It's going to change just like all relationships do.
Mhm.
My second son, his biological mom actually placed another child with us when he was 4.5 years old. And he met her, and that was not good. It was
Mhm.
traumatic for him. It was very difficult. He was still in the place of black and white thinking, and
Mhm.
it was not a good thing. I made a mistake with that, and it still to this day sort of haunts him a bit.
Mhm.
He was not ready for it. So knowing when any reunifications should happen, she has since died, and so for him,
Mhm.
he doesn't need to deal with it, and for him, that's good. In fact, his biological father found us through, a DNA test. I had done a DNA test with my son, and this biological father had did a DNA test and got the results back, and he thought that he was 50% matched with somebody. He thought it was a brother. So he reaches out thinking he's got this long lost brother and finds out he has this son.
Ah.
He didn't know.
So he reached out. He didn't know. He didn't know.
Wow.
And so he reached out to
Mhm.
me, and it was a wonderful experience. I loved visiting with him. I loved getting to know him. For me, it was amazing to get to know the father of my son. It was amazing. He sent me pictures. I talked with his wife. It was just a tremendous experience for me. Now, I then asked my son, "What do you want to do?" And his response was, "I don't wanna have anything to do with it. I don't want anything to do with it." And that may because of his bad experience when he was young, but for him, he wants nothing to do with it. And so I went back and I said, "Right now, he's not ready for a relationship with you. I am. We'll maintain a relationship." So we made a little group, and I think it hurt him. It hurt him
Mhm.
because he honestly doesn't have any children. This is his
Mhm.
only child, and for him, it was super exciting and was disappointing for him to kind of be rebuffed. So it's a challenge. Those are hard experiences, all
Mhm.
the way around. Now, my tendency, because I really would love my son to have that relationship, was to have a tendency to maybe wanna push on it, but I had to pop myself on the head and say, "No, give him the space he needs." And because I wanted it actually for this man. I wanted him to have that. I wanted it for both of them, but it's clear that they weren't ready, he wasn't ready for it. And then my youngest son, his mother was the same mother of my second one, and she has died, and we haven't been able he hasn't had any relationship with her, and I think I know who his biological father is and have offered a number of times if he wants to have, us to connect him. Now, that's my experiences, and those kinda give you some. I've watched
Mhm.
dozens and dozens of other adoptive families go through similar types of experience, and they are a variety, but there's those who get together and they have a relationship, and those relationships are variations of really positive to really negative. There's some that don't want anything to do with it, and then there's some that don't have the opportunities, and so it's across the board.
Do you mind, which this is a personal question,
Mhm.
do you mind sharing your feelings and responses towards your boys with their biological parents? So, for example, um, what I'm thinking of is just with your oldest son. Was there ever a point for you where maybe it was a little bit hard watching him form the connection with his biological mom, as if what I'm thinking of is, like, the feeling of being replaced,
Oh,
or, you
yeah.
know, would you mind sharing and elaborating on
Oh,
that? Because as a mom's heart, my first instinct is like, "I'm your mom." Like, "I'm your mom." Like, I don't want you to want somebody more than me, but adoption is a very complicated process, so I'm just curious, how was that for you?
Oh, for sure, and I don't think I call it the mother bear syndrome. Um, when you take that little baby home, every mother grabs hold of them and wants to scurry off to her own little den. I'm using the metaphor, mother bear. She
Ooh.
wants to scurry off to her own little safe place and take care of that baby. Every father wants to take that baby and go into a safe place, and now they're protective. It is the natural way we should be, and it is how we should be. And I talk with birth moms about this because one of the huge challenges for birth mothers and for adoptive parents is that natural desire for
Mhm.
both parties to take that little baby and care for him and protect him. Now, birth moms having now relinquished that right to another family will feel loss and will
Mm,
struggle with that normal, natural emotion of wanting to care for this baby. It is so
mhm,
normal. It is so natural. And the adoptive family will want to do the same thing. And so for a period of time there, there's tension, that tension. And then they both kind of go their own way. But then now you keep bringing them back together again, even if it's through an online portal, you bring them back together, those emotions will still rise to some degree. And, for myself personally, I remember, my oldest son's birth mom, she was so sweet, and this was my first child, and so she knew I was an idiot, and she, wanted to help me. She wanted to help me. She wanted to help me get the car seat right. She wanted to help me know what Pampers to buy. She wanted to help me. And I appreciated on the one hand, I appreciated her help, and on the other hand, I wanted to take my little baby to my little den and just us be there, and so that was a struggle. As the years have gone by, however, uh, in the early parts of their life, I continued to kind of feel a little bit mama bearish, where I wanted people to stay away. But then as time went along, I began to realize that the needs of my children, there were needs I couldn't meet.
mm,
There were
mhm,
needs that they had that I couldn't meet. For example, just the answer to the question of why did
mhm,
my place me for adoption? There were things that my children needed that I could not supply. that to some degree their biological parents could.
Mhm.
And maybe having a relationship there was in the best interest of my children. Now, that is not always the case, but I had to go through a period of time where I said, whether or not they think I'm a bad mom, or whether or not I think I'm a bad mom, they need something. And if I can help them find that, that's my job as their mom, to help them find that. And so I began to feel more comfortable with a more open adoption wherever I could, and actually began to seek it. But like I said, when with my second one, um, I timed it wrong. And so at 4.5, he didn't need another mother. He
Mm.
didn't need that. It
Mhm.
confused him and it was frustrating to him. It hurt him. And so the timing of it became quite important. And as you know, all moms can say, I made mistakes. I didn't
Mhm.
know. And wherever we can learn from each other,
Yeah.
then that's good. But yes, there is a tension there. I call it the tug of war. That sometimes a bit of a tug of war between the biological family and the adoptive family and the child here in the middle. And adoptive families have the responsibility, and this is their responsibility, to get on the side of the biological family and stop the tug of war. That
Mm.
child should never have to feel torn between those two. Now, we as adoptive families, we can feel that way all we want, but we need to kind of keep it to ourselves, and we need to
Mhm.
talk
Yeah.
to a counselor about it, and we need to get help with it. But when it comes to helping that child feel that any love is good love. And if there's somebody else out there that wants to come, and we need to get in alignment with them and allow that child to feel that love. Is it hard? Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's hard. But that's our responsibility as parents. Hard, but we have to do hard stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's literally my motto. We can do hard things because that's what
Mhm.
that's beautiful. Thank you for your honesty and vulnerability. Um, I feel like that makes it just so much more relatable.
Yeah.
Um, just because that was my knee-jerk reaction hearing it is I'm like, yes, I'm so happy for some of that. The other hand, mama bear in me is like, ah. And so I just thank you for sharing that. Do you mind walking us through what does a timeline for typical adoptions look like? How this is something that is foreign to me. Alyssa, you may know more about it, but
Not
like
really.
from applying for adoption to taking that baby home, what does the typical routine for that look like?
I can walk you through the process, but I certainly cannot give you a timeline because it varies so much. But if
Okay.
let's suppose that a family, a couple goes, it's really time for us to adopt, for whatever reason it is. The first step that they need to do is decide how they want to adopt. Now there's kind of 5 different ways, and I could give you 6, but I'm gonna just give you 5. One is if they know somebody, so they know a birth mom. Maybe it's a granddaughter, or maybe, I mean, that's, or a child. Maybe it's a neighbor. If they know somebody that is gonna have a baby and consider adoption, and they know them, that we call that an independent adoption. And then the process, is and the process for all of them is kind of the same. They first need to get a home study, which is society's way of saying, we think this is a good family and we feel that a child can come into this family. Now, granted, if you're going to have a baby on your own, nobody tells you you have to have a home study. You just go
Yeah.
have a baby. And
Yeah.
and so that's one of the struggles for adoptive families is, who are you guys to tell me whether or not I should have a child? Well, unfortunately, society has
Yeah.
decided that someone needs to say this is a good family. So they need to have a social worker come in and do a home study. And that really means that there's just kind of an interview with the family, kind of a brief check of their home, looking for safety. Then they need to have references from people, friends, and family. They need to have the doctor say that they're ready, and then they need a criminal background check. So that's a lot of things to say you have to do that. Now, on the one hand, we kind of go, oh, I shouldn't have to go through all that. On the other hand, if you think about it from a biological parent's point of view,
Mhm.
they wanna know that the little kid that they're gonna give them is going into a really good home. And so from their point of view,
Yeah.
having had all of those checks done on the adoptive family is a comforting thing. And they know that this person's not a molester or anything like that, and that this child's gonna go through a really good home. So in that way, it's a very positive thing. So for an adoptive family, they've gotta go through that home study process. Then they need to decide who are they gonna give their home study to? And there you can do an independent adoption where they just do it on their own, a domestic agency adoption, which would be what we are as and there's many of them around, or an international adoption where you go and look at orphanages elsewhere, or it can be a foster care adoption where you go to the foster care system. Right now, there's about 450,000 children in the foster care system. And half of those, so over 200,000 of them, are free for adoption, meaning
Mm,
it's already been said that anyone could come in and adopt them. So 200,000 children out there in the United States could be adopted tomorrow if the right
wow.
family comes along. And there are some obstacles for that. And what are the obstacles? Well, the biggest obstacle in the foster care system is that people get scared. They're
Mhm,
scared to take a child into their home, fall in love with this child, and have the child go back to the biological parents. They're afraid of that. And the second problem is that most of these children they're not newborns, so they already bring some baggage with them into and require a certain additional degree of training in order to handle the trauma that might be coming with that child. So I've said independent adoption, an agency adoption domestically, an international adoption, and a foster care adoption. Those are the for live children. There's of course surrogacy and there's embryo adoption too that I didn't include in there. But all of those, the first step is to get a home study that matches what they're looking for. Then the second step is to apply with whatever agency you want to apply with. And then the third step is make sure you know that you put your profile there and what your preferences and what you're looking for in a child. Make sure that that's clear to the agency, and then they will try to match you with biological parents or children that come to them. So you may get presented on multiple occasions, and the birth mother always has the say. This is in a domestic adoption. The birth mother has to say as to who she wants to choose, and so a lot of families will go through being shown to many people, and maybe they don't get picked, and that can be very disappointing and discouraging. But then they may be picked, and then there's the match. You're matched with somebody, and then once the match, try to develop a relationship with them, and then sometimes, as you told about your friends, sometimes, she'll change her mind,
mhm,
and, then it falls through, and, there's disappointment and hurt and frustration, and you have to kind of go through that. But if the match happens and she decides to make the placement, then the meeting will happen. A lot of times that meeting's there at the hospital where you get to know the birth mother and the child. And then legal work is done based upon the state's laws. It can be she signs the relinquishment papers, and then the child will be placed with the adoptive family. And then the next step is usually there's a time period from once the child goes into your home until it is actually finalized. And that's kind of this time where there'll be the same home study provider will come back in and make sure everything's going well during that post-placement period. And then the family will go in front of a judge, and the judge will order that the child is permanently theirs as though the child was born into their family. And that's the process.
That's so
what would
interesting.
you say Oh,
Is that
sorry,
Um,
what was it?
I was gonna say
Yeah.
that's just so interesting. I don't really, my mom's adoption was a closed adoption and she was an infant, so, like, there's no real reference point. She has a couple, like,
uh-huh.
sentences about her biological parents, but they don't even know if they're actually true. Um,
Uh,
and, uh, I just listening to you, the most experience I have is from watching the show Friends, and they portrayed it pretty accurately.
there we go.
So,
That's
it's
good.
interesting.
You were gonna say,
It is such a complex process, and I can only imagine the feelings from both sides throughout the whole thing.
mhm.
Mhm.
What would you say is the biggest surprise to most families when they start out their journey of adoption with you? When they come to you and they're like, "Donna, we wanna adopt for one reason or the another. Can you help us?" What catches them off guard the most about the journey usually?
I don't know about the most, but one of the things that's challenging is the need for resilience on their part. Now, I can't say that it's the case with all because I did an adoption Sunday, and do you want me to tell you the story? This is a crazy story.
We're
So
ready.
the birth mother, she didn't know she was pregnant, and she came into the hospital thinking that maybe she was having problems with her kidneys because she was having this back pain. Now, keep in mind she had had 4 children, and yet this pregnancy was so different that she didn't recognize it as a pregnancy. And so, it was really so she came in thinking something's wrong with my kidneys or something, and she even said to one of her kids, "I kind of feels like contractions." And her daughter said, "No, no." And then she gets in there and they do some tests to see what was causing the pain and realize she was pregnant. So and she was in active labor. So, so they called and said, "Hey, this person's here in active labor. Um, can you find a family?" And so, I went up, met her, got her information, stuff like that. Absolutely loved her and just thought, "What an amazing woman." Now, there you have to look at your thoughts
Mm,
because your thoughts they go, "What? How could that be? Yeah." And there's this judgment stuff that starts racing in our thoughts.
I'm a little jealous. That's a great pregnancy.
Yeah, that she didn't even know. A little
Obviously a
that's a
rough
good way of putting
situation,
it.
but my first thought was, "Man, wow."
That would be nice.
Yeah.
And so she had the baby, we got the information, and then we started looking for the right family. And of course, I asked her, "Well, what is it that you want?" And I always ask adoptive birth parents to imagine the family that you want this child to go to. Imagine how many kids are there? Do they have animals? Do they have dogs? Is it a married couple or is it uh, a single person? Is it a same-sex couple? What imagine what is it that
mhm.
you want. And sometimes they know, sometimes they haven't thought it through. Sometimes they want it to be a family of faith, sometimes they don't want to have faith, sometimes so they but most her only thought was, "I just want them to be here quick. I don't want my
I can
child."
respect that.
Yeah, and that's all she cared about. And so we looked for somebody that could be there quick, and we found a family, and they were just brand new with us, and I called them up and said, "Here's the situation." For them, it was like, "Oh,
Mm,
whoa!" And it was scary. They'd never adopted before. It was a lot. It was a lot really fast. But to their credit, they pulled it together. They prayed about it. They thought it through, and they showed up and they had a chance to meet her and get to know her. And they were worried, well, is the baby going to be okay? You took a picture of the baby and it kind of looked like she had a funny eye. And so they have all these thoughts. And then they get there. I said, yeah, I know all those thoughts. But I can promise you the minute you hold her, all of those fears are gonna go away. They're all gonna go away. And the
Mhm.
minute they held her, actually, they hadn't even held her, and all those fears were gone. But then now that's replaced with new fears, and those new
Yeah.
fears is, what if she changes her mind, and what if, this and all that, and so I can't remember what the question was, but there's a lot. Oh, and so for them, it was a whirlwind experience, just a whirlwind
Mhm.
experience. Then there's others that come in and, they'll be with us and they'll get shown to 3 people and they didn't get chosen. And then maybe they'll be shown to somebody and they get matched with them, they get chosen and they're so excited. And then she's gonna have the baby and she even says, "Come and have the family come," and they come and it's a wonderful experience. Or maybe they come and then she changes her mind. And
Mhm.
so it can be a whirlwind experience, it can be drawn out, it can be really challenging. But this is a promise that I give to my families, to all of our families. Stick with it.
Mm.
If you stick with it, if you're willing to go through the disappointments, the frustrations, the weight, the discouragement, and you're a good family. Now, if they've made it through a home study and they have a good home study, they've kind of been declared as a good family. But if you'll stick with it, there are some things that maybe make it more difficult. For example, if they've got lots of kids, then it's more difficult for a birth mom to want to place with them. But if they'll stick with it, um, almost always we can find the child that should be in their home. And I do think of it that way. And so you ask what my faith, how it contributes to this. Well, there it is. My faith contributes because I feel like all of these adoptions are God led. I feel like there is a higher power that manages them all, and that what we do is just kind of scramble around trying to do the best we can. And if we have the confidence and the faith that we're being guided, that makes it doable. And even in the
Mhm.
disappointments and in the frustrations, those frustrations and disappointments, help us grow. What doesn't kill you make you stronger. And I've had families say, "Well, what will happen if she changes her mind and we don't get this child?" And I shouldn't have done this, but I did it. I go, "Woohoo!" And they looked at me like, "What? Why would you say that?" And I said, "Because think of it this way. You go through a loss like that, you go through a disappointment and a struggle like that, it changes you.
Mhm.
And because it changes you, guess what? You are now able to relate and connect and bind with someone else going through a loss and a struggle and a disappointment. And guess who that is? That's the mother of this child. And so it seasons you in a way that you become a more capable fit to match
Mhm.
with women that are going through frustrations and loss and disappointment. You can relate to that a little differently than you would have been able to before. So that's what I always say is please go through some losses, go through some hard times, go through some disappointments because the
Mhm.
woman that you're wanting to match with, that's what she's been going through.
Mm.
I was listening to a sermon the other day, and one of the things that they said was that growth doesn't happen when everything's fine.
No,
Growth
it doesn't.
happens in the seasons of waiting. Growth happens in the seasons of hard. And I think that's just such a beautiful perspective that you shared, because if you hadn't walked through that, you would not be able to grow in the way that you've grown.
And
Um,
then relate to this woman who's been going through the hell that she's been going through. And for her to get to the place where she's at, there's been a lot of tough times for her
Mhm.
mhm.
and going to be a lot more. Um,
Yeah, that's so good. So I want to be respectful of your time. So we're gonna ask two more questions.
okay.
Alyssa, I'll go first, and then I'll let you think of whatever other question you have that you would really want answered. So, a question that I have is, and this is just based off of the personal experience we have with our friends.
Mhm,
So were trying to do private domestic adoptions
mhm,
and ultimately ended up losing thousands of dollars
mhm.
because it can be an expensive process.
Right.
Can you break down for listeners when you're spending money on private domestic adoptions, where does that money go for it to cost the amount that it does?
For sure. No, it's an excellent question. Now, my perspective is just a little bit different than sometimes you'll see in other agencies. So I'm going to try to answer it from both points of view. I'm gonna I wanna remind you again of one of the things I learned when I started the agency, and that was that the challenge it is for adoptive families, particularly when it comes to the money, because they're putting their heart and soul into it. There's 2 things that matter to us the most in this world. It's our children and our money. And those things and in adoption,
Mhm.
those both of those things are right on the line. And so helping people with the 2 most important things in their life is you have to be really, really respectful of what it is. So what we have chosen to do is what we call a flat fee, which basically means this is how much it's going to cost. You know, right up front, this is how much it's going to cost. Um, and uh, Everything that we do, with the exception of 2 things, that's medical costs that we can't control and possible additional legal costs in the case of a contested adoption. Those 2 things we can't control. But everything else, whatever help goes into birthing, helping the birth mother and anything else will be right up front in this flat fee. So people know right at the beginning what it is that it's going to cost. The second thing that's important on that is that you don't do add-ons. That if there's no add-ons, then you don't, don't throw something. Now, the things that, again, you can't control are medical
Mm.
costs and potential legal costs. Those are out of our control, but anything that's in your control, you don't add on. So that's the second thing. The third thing is what happens if it fails? So we have chosen to do it one way, and that way is we tell them right up front, if this doesn't go through, we will either give it back to you or we will roll over everything that you've paid with the exception of 10%. And that 10% we will put towards it costs to take care of the birth mother. And so we will take out 10% and then either roll over or give back everything else. And that way they know right up front what it is, what they're expecting, and what will happen. And then, of course, we do what we say we're going to do and follow through with that. Now, that's answering the question. Now, that not all agencies do it that way. But we have found that that seems to be the most effective in balancing the needs of everyone. Now, where does that money go? That's part of that flat fee. Well, where it goes is a third of it, and I can break it down really kind of in thirds and thirds and thirds. Well, the last third's kind of a mixture, but a third of it goes into directly caring for the birth mom, her rent, her housing, her phone, her utilities, clothing, food, getting her to the doctor, and directly going to the birth mom. The next third of it goes to paying the people who care for her and also support the adoptive family. So it goes into personnel costs. And so a third for the birth mom, a third to the people that are providing the services. And then the last third is kind of divided into a couple parts. About a fourth of the last third goes into marketing, and that type of thing. And then the rest of it is just kind of overhead, housing, rent for the apartment, I mean, for the office, paper, that kind of stuff. So about a third, and then the last third is mixed into more administrative stuff, especially marketing. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I have a question about the part that goes towards the mom.
Right.
So, do the adoptive parents, do they pay for basically everything for the mom from the time that they're matched to the time that she gives birth, or is it like a percentage?
No, that's a really good question. I'm not quite sure. Let me answer it this way, and you then tell me if I answered your question. Um, moms will come to us, and this is where a flat fee is bad. Because, for example, that one that I just told you,
Mhm.
if it wasn't a flat fee and you just paid your third of what she needed, well, she didn't need anything. So that
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
really cheap. And so that's where a flat fee is bad, is because she didn't need anything. So
Mhm.
by doing a flat fee everywhere, it's really nice to do it up front, that's really clear. But now one like that, you end up paying for other people. And but
Mhm.
on the other hand, let's suppose someone came in and that the agency's been caring for a birth mom for 6 months. And now there's a lot of money that's been spent. Well, they still pay the same amount, and they don't have to worry about covering everything. The other thing that's important to me on that is that I don't want the adoptive families worrying about it. I don't want them worrying, how much are you paying on her rent?
Mhm.
Did you take her out to the movie? I don't want them worrying about it, and I don't want them debating in their mind, "Should we
Mhm.
pay for this? Should we pay for this? Should we do that? Should we help her?" I don't worry about
Yeah.
any of that, because then that put creates it creates in them this conflict of,
Mhm.
"What do I need to do to care for this mom, and how do I save money for the baby?" It creates a
Right.
conflict inside of them, and you don't want that conflict to be there. So you just straight let the agency handle it. You know how much you're going to pay right up front. Let the agency, however that's going to be. And sometimes, you could have gotten it cheaper. It would have been easier, or that would have been a whole bunch more. Either way, it's just straight, and people know what they can count on.
No, that's great. That does answer my question. Um, yeah, thank you so much for that. I feel like that's super insightful for listeners. Alyssa, what is your last question for Donna?
My question goes back to when you were talking about reunification, that kind of thing with birth mothers. I'm just curious, do
Mhm.
you see more girls curious about their birth mothers than boys and or
Uh,
fathers? Because I just feel like I would be more curious than like my brother, like you were saying, okay, okay, it was cool. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how my husband is with his, like, actual biological parents. Okay, cool. Alright, love you. Talk to you in a month.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can answer. I would to try to answer that question, I'll switch over to my sister's children,
Mm.
because if you remember, she adopted a girl, then she adopted a boy, and then she adopted a boy, and then she adopted another boy. Oh my god! And then she actually biologically had a girl,
Oh, wow.
and so I can only compare. But of the 3 boys that she adopted, one doesn't care at all. Seriously, he doesn't care at all. Another one, he's curious and he'd like to know some of the answers, but he doesn't want a relationship. And the other one, he wanted a relationship, and he went and he spent time with them, and it affected him. Now, the girl, she wanted a relationship, and she's had a relationship, and it's been a very challenging and yet fulfilling relationship. I don't know if she'd say fulfilling, but it's been a dynamic relationship for all along. And so
Mm.
I don't know that I can necessarily, and I've been in the in the um in the adoptees that I've talked with over the years, I tend to talk a lot more to the men.
Hmm.
Now I don't know exactly why that is, but I tend to talk a lot more to men. And what I've noticed is that they oftentimes wait till later on in life before they want a relationship. I think a large part of it has to do with the relationship you have with your adoptive family. If the adoptive parents give a message, whether it's overt or covert, that it's going to hurt them if
Yeah.
you reach out to your biological
Mm,
parents, then the adoptee will hesitate. They will
Mhm.
hesitate, and sometimes they'll hesitate until their biological parents have died
Mm.
because they don't wanna hurt them. And so, take-home message there is adoptive parents, work on your own stuff. Work on your
Mhm.
own stuff so that you can be secure enough in yourself that you don't give even an undertone that I'm threatened by you getting the answers that maybe you need. Now, in that way, possibly we could say that girls are very sensitive to maybe the undercurrents that are going on with their parents, or maybe boys are. I don't know. I think it varies, but I think everyone needs to have the opportunity to explore that if that's something. And I think we as adoptive parents, we got to be respectful of that, and we got to work on our own stuff so that it doesn't feel threatening to us. And even when we fake it, in tune children, they know when you're
Yeah.
faking it, and they'll maybe back off. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. It depends. Did that
Yeah.
answer your question? It didn't
Yeah.
answer your question
Well,
because I didn't
it
answer it.
didn't, but it really answered a better question. So good job.
Okay.
Donna, can you share for us again, where can listeners who want to learn more about you, follow along with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, with you, they can listen to, but they can go to, I've got a couple of podcasts out there. One of them is Voices of Adoption. So they can go to that, or they can go to hearttoheartadopt.com. And I'm going to announce to you, because this is an important thing that we're creating. We're creating a platform. It's a platform where all adoption service providers, agencies, foster care systems, counselors, lawyers can come onto this platform and share their services. And then adoptive families, birth parents, adoptees can come onto the platform and find services. And so we're creating that, but an important part of that is going to be that podcasts will be available on there too. So it's going to be called adoptions with an s.com, and that they can come on and find it. We hope to have that up and going by the first of the year, where people can come and find all kinds of podcasts. They can find all kinds of services, agencies, foster cares, international, independent, lawyers, counselors. We hope to bring all of those people on this platform where people, and even more important, I think most importantly, they can find each other. So adoptive families can find other adoptive families that they can form support groups in. Birth mothers can find other birth mothers they can form support group. Birth fathers, adoptees, everybody can find support groups that they can find. So in addition to what I had talked about, where we have an online group between the birth family and the adoptive family, we're going to have additional groups there between that adoptees can talk with adoptees, birth parents can talk with birth parents, adopted, and we'll find support groups there as well.
That's amazing.
That's going to
Great.
soon.
That's
That's
awesome.
super exciting. And that's an awesome tool for people to be able one-stop shop
Yeah,
for all
Yeah.
things adoption needs. I think that's amazing.
that
And
sounds like
that
a
you're
good slogan.
undertaking that because technology's hard.
It
Yeah.
is hard. It is.
Yeah. So to end our episodes each week, Donna, we do what we call a Momtroversial moment,
Okay.
which is just a token mom life moment that you've experienced throughout the week with
Mm.
your kids. So I'm going to give you time to brainstorm that because we
You want
also
it
want to
good or
hear
bad? Which one do you want it to be?
either.
It can be
It
either.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
because we
It
say
really
it's
can
the
be.
moments that make you laugh, the moments that make you cry, the moments that make you just say, yep, it's mom life. It's being a
Yep.
mom.
Okay.
So whatever stands out to you the most.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're funny. Mine's funny this week.
Okay.
Mine too.
So I'll let you brainstorm. We'll let you go last so you can
Okay.
brainstorm.
All right.
So for our controversial moments, we're going to transition into that section to end our episode. Mine this week, I'm still in shock of 3 days later. I have a 18-month-old and a 3-year-old.
Uh,
And I am notoriously bad about replacing toilet paper when we run out.
Oh no.
And I get myself in sticky situations. I don't know why, guys. I don't know. This is just something that for some reason I struggle with. So I used the bathroom the other day and didn't have any toilet paper because I didn't check when I looked. I'm home by myself with the kids. I was actually on the phone with my husband and was like, "Oh, no. What do I do?" And Travis is laughing at me. And my 3-year-old Declan, he comes in the room and he said, "Mommy, what happened? What happened, mommy?" And I said, "Mommy doesn't have any toilet paper. I don't know what to do." And he said, "Oh, it's okay. I help you." And homie walked from my room all the way across the house to the pantry, got a
Wow.
roll of toilet paper off the shelf in the pantry,
Wow.
and brought it all the way back to me. I didn't believe it when he said he could help
How
me.
old was he?
He's
How old?
3.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I
Wow.
said. And he brought it right back to me. He said, "Here you go, mommy." And I was like, I could have cried. I was like, I'm doing something right that my 3-year-old literally was able to go get me toilet paper independently. It was the funniest moment, but I was just so shocked. And it was just one of those moments that was just so rewarding because it's like, wow, I'm doing something right with this kid,
Doing something
you
right.
know?
Uh-huh.
You got it.
So that was my moment this week. And I'm still in shock every time I think about it and reflect on that moment.
I
That's
love
cool.
that.
That's cool.
My moment is actually kind of a little bit of a dad-troversial moment. It has to do with Ryan. And it's so nice to just be able to talk about this pregnancy now because it revolves around that. Last night we had nighttime visitors, which we don't usually. Like our girls are really good about staying in their rooms, sleeping through the night generally.
Mhm.
But Reagan came in and she said there was something in her bed and she was afraid. So I said, okay. I got up with her because, Ryan gets up at like 5:30 for PT. So normally I get up in the middle of the night with the girls. Unless it's the weekend, then he definitely gets up. But yeah, so I went and helped her, got back in bed and, an hour later, I don't know, 3:30, 4, Kennedy, my youngest, comes in. And she comes in tears. "Mommy, you didn't kiss me goodnight." And I said, "No, I did kiss you goodnight. You were just asleep when I kissed you goodnight," because I had taken a bath earlier, while Ryan was putting them to bed. I said, "No, I did, I did." "No, you didn't kiss me goodnight, mommy." She's 2. So, okay, I'm gonna give you some kisses. I'm gonna give you kisses. And Ryan, he got out of bed. He took her back for me because I'm like, I can't even I'm not sleeping great already, so I'm just barely focused. He takes her back to bed and he tells her, mommy's baby's making her tired. So if you get sad again or if you need anything, just come wake up daddy. So apparently I slept through this, which I'm shocked by. Apparently, I don't know, an hour later, she came around to his side, tapped him and said, "Daddy, I wake you up." And Ryan was like,
And he's going, "Oh,
Ryan,
my land, this is not what we
That's
wanted."
not what I meant.
yes. He was like,
No, that's
"Do you
really
need
cute.
something?" She goes, "No, I wake you up." He was like, "We're
That's what
going
mommy
back to
told me to
sleep."
do. That's really good.
Oh, poor guy. But it was hilarious. Telling me this story this morning while I'm still laying in bed and he's, completely ready for work. And he was like, she was so
That's
proud of
really
herself. That is not what I meant. It was
no, that's
hilarious.
really good.
Shout out to Ryan.
So so mine are very different because I have adult children now. And so for me, mine would last night, just my youngest son came in from work. He's doing door-to-door sales, which he actually really enjoys. He likes doing door-to-door sales.
It's like my
And
nightmare.
I
I
know.
know.
Some people have the personality
Wow.
for it though.
They do, and he does. And he doesn't mind. He laughs if they tell him, "I have a no soliciting sign." And he laughs at it. It doesn't bother him. But I guess this is the best you can do as parents of adult children. He came in and sat down on the couch with me and told me all about his day. And that, I guess, is just the best you can hope for, is
I
that they'll
love
come
that.
in and tell you all about their day, good
You
and
said
bad.
this is your oldest?
That was actually my youngest, and he's 20 years
Youngest, okay.
old. And my oldest called me as I was driving home, and he's now working as he works as a hair cutter. He cuts hair,
Oh.
and so he tells me about his customers that came in to get his hair cut, and that's, I guess, what matters is that they feel like they can call and tell you.
I love
I
it.
think so. I think that that's a great moment, especially to give hope to moms who are in the little kid season, because like that's the goal, right? When your
Uh-huh,
kids grow up, your goal is to raise these independent individuals, but you also still want them to want you when they're
Mhm.
adults.
uh-huh,
And that's just such a good example and hope of like, that's what I want. Men are
Mhm.
usually very independent, I feel like, and don't usually need as much emotional connection. At least
Mhm.
I call my mom like every day. My
Yeah.
mhm.
husband does not. So you sharing stories of your sons wanting to come and talk to you, I'm like, okay, so boys do that. That gives me hope that people want me still when he's so little.
Yep.
I love it.
That's
Well,
so
you
good.
guys, this has been so fun. It's been so fun to
Thank
talk.
you
Thank you.
so much for sharing with us and taking your time. What you do is absolutely phenomenal, and it's such a blessing and a need to so many people that I'm really thankful that you took the time for us to be able to share you and your mission out
Mm.
there with our listeners and our followers.
Thank you.
Um, so again, yes, you guys can find Donna with her podcast. We will have them all linked for you guys below. We would love for you guys to go check her out and send some love, just like you would to any podcast you listen to. Rate, review, star. That is the best thing you can do for the other podcast hosts to just help continue to get the word out there and spread so that way our messages could be spread across the platforms. Donna, again, thank you so much. This has been great, and we've learned so
Yes.
much from you. And for the rest of our listeners, until next time, you can follow us on Instagram at Momtroversial Podcast and keep it Momtroversial. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.